You are now locked in to the Sitting Down with the Sisters podcast.
Hi guys!
Welcome back to the Sitting Down with the Sisters podcast. We are your hosts. I'm Ayo.
I'm Temi. And I'm Ashley.
And we have a special guest with us today. A very different guest. You guys are not going to expect this episode. It's going to very much come out of nowhere.
We don't even know what's going to happen.
Yeah. Honestly,
get on our own show, we've got someone questioning us.
Yes. That's a little hint for you. But would you like to introduce yourself, special guest?
So my name is Fiyin. As you'll see from my accent, I hope you're able to understand me. I'm not from London. I'm not a London boy. I'm from the shores of Belfast, Northern Ireland. Oh, wow. So, So for me, I came across the show, so I've been listening to the show. And so just contacted the girl to say, you know what? It's time to flip the script. Okay. Let's hear what you guys got to say about certain things. Mm-hmm. So these questions are either from my point of view or I've asked some friends and some other people to see what questions
you conducted a whole study.
Hey, come prepared.
Wow.
Fail to prepare?
Should we be nervous?
Prepare to fail.
Right.
So, so I think, just a bit about my background. So, again, I said I grew up in Belfast, Northern Ireland. And so when I moved to Belfast, 95, so I was born in Nigeria. I moved to Belfast. I think there were less than 800 black people out of 1.6 million people.
Wow.
So for me, growing up, this whole notion of, what's black or you're a minority, I had the extremes. So when I listen to podcasts or when I listen to girls like yourselves or women, let me correct myself, women like yourselves, talk about certain topics, I'm always interested to see why you say what you say or what the reference point is. So I think the first question would be, obviously all you three are black, so what do you define as black? Or when you say black women, black men, black culture, what does that actually mean?
Who wants to go first?
Are you gonna go?
I can go first, I don't mind. Well, personally, I think black is a very general term. So when I think of black people, I just think of people that have the same skin tone or skin complexion, obviously in the ranges of hues and whatever, as me. You don't have to be from a specific country or anything. I just think black people is a general term, which can also be a reductionist term sometimes, but for a group of people that look like me, that's how I would define black.
So when you say look, so if you take a Steph Curry, or you take someone like Lupita, they look very different.
Yeah.
But if you take Steph Curry, say in America, he's defined as black. If you bring him to UK, people might say he's mixed race. So when it comes to people who say are mixed or come dual heritage, are they defined as black? Or what makes up, if you're 1/4, 1/8, what makes you quote unquote black?
I think that's kind of hard to answer simply because obviously the way you've answered is based off of how they look, and I think it's great that you did that distinction. Obviously in America he's looked at as African American, a black basketball player, but then here he would be seen as mixed race. I would still identify him as black.
So will I,
to answer your question, I would still identify him as black.
I would just say that he is whatever he... So here, I think we respect when people say they're mixed race. We don't say, oh no, but you're black, how in America they would. So I would just say he's whatever he defines himself as. But yeah, I would still class him as black if you wanted to.
I'd class him as black, but I feel like people get their... they categorize people based off what was happening back in slavery. Right? So... back then, he would have been seen as a black man regardless of his white...
Or him being a lighter complexion.
So, I don't know if I agree with it, but that's just what I've been conditioned to learn and understand. So, he is black. So, yeah.
Interesting.
To me, anyway.
And so if you take people like, say, Steph Curry, Lupita, Burna Boy, you have people who are black from different places. So now they've all created what some people term as black culture. But again, what is black culture? Because if you look at black people, say in Brazil, black people in France, black people in America, black people in, and I use the term black people in Kenya, South Africa, if you talk to them or look at the way they do life, there doesn't seem to be a quote unquote inherent culture, but we still refer to black culture. What is this black culture? How would you define this black culture to other people?
I feel like black culture is very like
Diverse.
It's very diverse, but it's also very different based on where you live. So if you live in the UK, well, let me not even say the UK. If you live in London. Or like places closer to London, there's like a black British culture, or there's like urban black culture, or there's even a London culture, South London culture, East London culture, and then that and whatever for black people there. But then if you go to like America, black culture is different there. So I wouldn't say there's only one black culture, but I do think black people have this synonymous way of looking at it where if you're black, we expect every black person to
be
at
like
least...
that.
And if you don't do it, you can't be in the same category as a black person. Like, I think it's, like Aya said, it is different in different countries, and I don't know if it's just the black community. Obviously we're talking about the black community. I don't know if it's just us that have that, but it's definitely different everywhere.
I think it is just us, you know, because I don't think when white people think of, like, say a white British person, they don't classify themselves the same way they would classify Romanian people or a French person. They would say they're British, and they wouldn't just say I'm white. I feel like white and black, obviously we all know it's like a social construct, but like they don't like put themselves in a one group like black culture.
Actually.
I think we're the only race that does that, but I don't think we did it to ourselves. I think through
something that's happened
everything
over
that's
time.
happened historically, we've been reduced almost into this one, all black people are the same, or all black people do the same, they act the same, they have the same, you know, mannerisms, whatever.
And but then feeding into what you just said, do you think that by doing that and by the black community or whatever you want to call it, doing that, we kind of lose, or we don't get to learn about each other's nationalities, cultures, because I'm guessing like both Nigerian, I think Congolese. It's like, for me, I know nothing about Congo. I know nothing about Rwanda. I know nothing about Angola. Whereas I can tell you more about how Italians are. I can tell you more about French are. I can tell you more about Romanians. But that's because when I meet someone who's Caucasian or white, they will, oh, I'm French, and then they'll tell me about their nationality. Whereas to a certain extent, is that it seems that sometimes we go we're black, and then it gets to a point where, or they hang around a bunch of black people and we don't actually get to discuss or talk about, oh, like, what traditions do you have in your culture? So do you think by basically having this blanket term of black, we miss out on this, or is it something which, as you said, is this something which is just the new or is a norm which if we spend too much time deconstructing that, we might lose some type of unity within the community?
I think to just follow off of what Aya said, like she said, there's black culture looks different in different locations. So I would say here, anyway, in London, I think to answer your question, we've adopted whatever culture is here, and I feel like along the way we've lost thriving in our uniqueness, and that's why, again, like you said, you wouldn't be able to tell me like facts about Congo or Rwanda or all of these places. Like you said, you'll meet a white person and tell you, oh, I'm French, and they'll say X, Y, Z. Whereas when you just say, oh, I'm black, and then we've adopted the culture that is in South London, so that's kind of that's become our identity.
That's all we know.
We have in a sense lost our uniqueness.
And to just lead on from what Ashley's saying, that's why initially when you asked us to define the term black, I said it can be very reductionist in that way, because like me I like to identify as Nigerian, to be fair. I less like to identify as black, but even still in that, do I know enough about my culture? Like, I don't think so. I think I could know a lot more. And I do think the whole streamlined term of black is probably part of that, especially being born here, then growing up here. You do lose a bit of your actual culture, your actual heritage roots, because of how reductionist the term black can be.
Yeah, and you don't want to play the blame game, because if we really look back and think, why have we not adopted our culture and try to learn about it? There's so many different reasons, like Ashley said. We live here, that's number one. But then some people would also argue that, you know, our parents, maybe they haven't done enough to teach us growing up. Do you know what I mean? And we can also blame ourselves because we're at that age now, we're grown, we can learn more, we can go back home, we can do what we need to do, which I think people are doing now more than ever.
I agree.
But we're still not there yet. So there is a journey to go, but I do think the awareness is being brought to it.
And from being in South London, do you ever see a difference between, say, people like yourselves who might have been born and raised here versus people who maybe moved over here when they're 6, 10, whatever, and to a point where because they were born in, say, Africa or wherever it is, they still had some type of exposure to what it was like there. And when they come here, they're not like, well, I don't know, say Congolese, British, but to them, they're like, well, I just came here, but I was actually still born in this country. So their identity might not be the same. Do you ever see a difference between, like, immigrants who've come to the country versus people who've potentially been born here?
Can I start?
Yeah, I was
I
gonna
think
say
it's very relatable to me, simply
that.
because I wasn't born here. I came here when I was about 5, 6. And would I say that I'm different to them, like to you guys? I wouldn't. I'll be honest. I wouldn't say I'm different.
I would say
and
we
it's
have
so
some differences, but yeah,
really, we'll talk about that because I do want to know what it is. I feel like it's a bit of pressure, I'll be honest, that I do get, and it's subconscious. People don't know they're doing it, but they do it all the time. I even got this, I think it was yesterday or a few days ago, when they get to find out that I was not born in the UK. It's like, can you speak your mother's tongue? And when I give my answer, because I wouldn't say I can't speak it, but I have my moments. But they would expect me to fully be able to speak it. What's the reason? You were born there. You were born in Nigeria. Why can't you? Do you know what I mean? Like, do you know the age I came here? Like, I've lived more than half of my life here in the UK. Do you know what I mean? If I was to go back to Nigeria, I don't even know if I can even blend in over there. Do you know what I mean? So there's that too. But in terms of the question you asked about the difference, people do expect a difference, absolutely. But is there really a difference? I can only speak from my experiences. Unfortunately, I can't really pinpoint the difference.
That's
I can't.
Interesting. I think that's a very interesting question, by the way, because I do think for a lot of people that I have friends that were both born here, and then friends that, so example, Temi is one of them, but like we have Benga as well. And I think it depends on how you assimilated when you got here, because some people, when they got here, I do think there was that period during school where people were ostracized if you were not born here, and it was you were made to feel like an outsider, and then that, I think, then determined how they assimilated. Because if your home was very proud and you were very like cultured, then you were able to maybe see beyond the the bullying and whatever. But if not, your default to survive in a situation like that would be to assimilate.
Absolutely.
And then obviously as you then get
to fit in.
and then obviously as you get older,
I'll never forget when I first came here. I'm in primary school. I still have this memory because it sort of relates to what we're talking about and how it's, shaped me into who I am now. But I remember in primary school, like, I never thought I had an accent when I came. I didn't think I had an accent.
What's
Do you know
that?
what I mean? Like, because obviously I was like, how old? Like, I'm in school. Like, that doesn't... Do you know what I mean? I thought I spoke like everyone else. Everyone spoke like me. But I remember in English, we had to read a book, so it was my turn to read, and I remember I don't think she done it maliciously, but she just made it obvious for everyone. Oh, you've got a nice accent or something like that. And I thought, accent? What's that? What's an accent? I mean, do you know what I mean?
English.
You know what I mean? But then after that, I started to become more conscious of like the way I spoke and stuff, and I try to like
assimilate.
I would try to like fit in and everything. And I don't know if this helped, but like what I was saying earlier about our parents playing a part in it. My mum used to literally be like, oh, you have to start talking like that now. Like you do, like, do you know what I mean? Because so you don't want to, do this, like start talking. You don't want to, so, this is where you live now. You need to, she didn't do it maliciously. She didn't say I can't be myself. But it's just like, you need to fit in now. You don't live in Nigeria anymore. And, she knew with time it would come, but she just said it. And in my head, I just thought, okay, yeah, I do.
And I feel like there was a part of that where it was her trying to be protected. She didn't want you to be bullied, or she didn't want anything bad to happen to you. She just wanted you to be able to at least, because when it comes to kids can be very brutal about stuff like that.
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
Sure. I just wanted you to feel like it was your home.
Yeah, that was that too.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Because that's very interesting, because I think for me it was, because as I said, I moved to Northern Ireland when I was 5.
Yeah.
But it was interesting because when I got to Northern Ireland, it was the first time I realized I was black. Because I grew up in Nigeria.
Oh my God!
So
yes.
before I was just like,
Yes.
The only person who was white or Caucasian in my life was my teacher. She was like Hungarian, so I was kind of used to that. But I remember when I got here, and I can still remember getting off the train not train,
the plane.
Get off the plane in. So we think we went to like Hungary or something like that, and I got there and I was just like, first time I ever saw snow, and I was like, what the heck is this?
What is going on?
And then I got off the plane in Belfast, and I was just like, where are we? And then after that, start meeting people like, oh, you're beautiful, and I was sitting there going, who are all these random people coming up to me? But it was the first time when, and then people started either being racist or pointing it out, and I was like,
this is different.
This is different.
Because I'm not used
I
to
didn't
this.
have a comprehension.
Yeah.
But moving forward, like to like my 20s or 18, or when I went to university, when I again came around more black people, because again I said, I didn't really have that many black people around me. It was a shock because people were like, oh, you're different. Oh, you're not really, well, I mean, you're black, but you're really white. And I sat there and in my head, I'm like,
what does that mean?
Where were you guys born? And they were like, oh, I was born in London all my life. I'm like, so how are you more black than me? Because I'm like, you haven't been to your own country or wherever it was.
Yeah.
But then I realized there were certain things which were instilled in me at a young age. And because of that, it got a point where I always, as I think I always said, I identified more as Yoruba. Not even Nigerian. I said, oh, I'm Yoruba. And then people was like, okay, from Nigeria. But half the time I didn't say Nigeria because of the negative connotations which a lot of people have. I rarely ever said the word black because I was just like, what is this? And also growing up in Northern Ireland, it was that a lot of what people there saw as black was what they saw on TV, which is African American. So to me, I was like, I'm not African American. So I'm not, like, to me, I was like, I'm not black. I'm Yoruba. I'm this. So it got a point where growing older, it got a point where people now started saying more London, as London become more
as what is black.
Exactly. And it got to the point where they were like, oh, well, you're not Londoner in it, what, bro? I'm like,
I don't know what that is.
I'm like, I don't talk about that. Or people are like, oh, do you listen to rap? And I'm like, no. I'm listening to Skitty Boy by Avril Lavigne. They're like, what? They're like, what? And but for me, I was just like, oh, is that not normal? But then I started questions like, what is black and what all these different things? But that's the reason I asked this, because to understand that people who grew up here is who teaches you you're black? Is it society or is it your parents?
That's a really good
That's
question.
Very good question.
Whereas in Nigeria, you're not like,
no one has to teach you anything.
You're allowed to be a different version of black because black is not a thing. You're just a person. You're allowed to have your own. Exactly. You're allowed to have your own interests. Like here, if you're black, you're expected to have certain interests. You're expected to have certain hobbies. You're expected to have certain views, certain perspectives. And I think that is. I've never thought about it like that. Don't you think it's so? It is so reductionist. Like it's so. It makes it like so linear. Like you're not allowed to be a lot of things, and I think that affects. I feel like it affects boys more than it does. I know that's quite a general statement to make and quite wild, but the reason I say that is because I think it shows a lot more evidently, like, say for instance a boy wanted to be like an artist, like a drawing kind of artist or like a painter, it wouldn't be expected of him because he's a boy and he's black. You'd expect something, I guess, more masculine, because black men in the Western side of the world are socialized to be more not in touch with stuff like that or not care about stuff like that. And so it's either a rapper. If you're not a rapper, then you're not. You can't be an athlete. Do you know what I'm saying? So that's an example of what I meant.
Women. While with women the pressure will be there, things like doing your hair a certain way, appearance wise,
and you know what's crazy? The pressure will be to still wear more like a wig or like adhere to more Eurocentric things, which are less black in quotes. But and then when you dress more or when you wear your natural hair or you whatever, you're considered to be like woke. Or you're considered to be more. I don't know.
I get
and it's weird. It's weird.
And I also think something which only like just listening to you talk was that also growing up in, I would say, for the first 5 years in Nigeria, it meant that I was able to see a lot of black people in certain jobs which I don't get to see here.
Wow.
So a good point where like my mom, she trained as a vet, my dad worked in agriculture and then worked for the government, all this different stuff. But I got to see people in my church who were doctors, lawyers, drove a car, like cleaner, just the whole spectrum. And then to a certain extent, even when I went to Northern Ireland, I got to see people, most people who moved there were professionals, i.e. doctors or lawyers or things like that. But it was only when I came to like England when I started seeing people were like, oh, well, a lot of ethnic minorities are forced into these jobs, or people were like, oh, well, I never knew I could come this job or this job. Whereas to me, I was like, where's this coming from?
That's the norm for you. Yeah, it was different.
And then it got to a point where even sometimes my job, like when I used to work, and I used to work late, I would see sometimes cleaners come in. I used to have this like, I won't say like kind of guilt, because I'm like, wow, like I'm doing this job and I'm blessed, and I know you're working hard in this clean job, but everyone else in my firm just looks at you as a cleaner. Whereas for me, I'm like, you're working hard, put food on the table. And it's something which, again, I still find very, like, to me, even to this, I find very weird where, and this is maybe the privilege I have, where I talk to people who are from certain communities or from the inner city, and the way they think about jobs is they're not taught, oh, you can be an engineer, or you can be a pilot, or you can be all these things. Whereas growing up in Nigeria or just around my family, it's something which is very common to the point where it's like, I never thought I couldn't do something.
Right.
So that's something which, again, and this is something which is seen even in America, because a lot of what I do with my job, I work with American firms, American community. And it's interesting there where when you listen to the difference between African Americans and Africans who've emigrated there, and it's that a lot of the Africans who have emigrated there obviously are very educated. I think Nigerians are the most educated immigrant group in America in terms of PhDs, masters. So it gets to the point where you nearly sometimes see, I'm not saying it's all the time, but you see there's like a rift where the people who've come there, the way their parents are like, you got an education, make the most of it. Whereas sometimes I look at the African Americans who don't make most of it, like, you get free education. If you go back to my country, you don't get this type of stuff. So it gets to the point where sometimes a lot of people who I've interacted with actually are immigrants to America. And I've always wondered why that was. And from research, it seems that it's because of that mentality of when it came from that country, it was like, we're going to America, and when you get to America, you can study to become whatever you want to be. Right. Whereas in certain communities within America or in African Americans, the system has nearly told them you cannot be this unless you're X, Y, and Z, i.e. 10 times better than everyone else. Right. Whereas in Nigeria, it's like, how many doctors are in Nigeria?
Right. It's the privilege.
Yes.
That's what I think it is. Wow. Like, if we want to just simplify everything, it's literally just a privilege, because I don't want to say I can relate to that, but if I can relate to that, it's based off what I tell myself. Like, I've always said that I feel like there's a reason why my family came to the UK. Like, because I could have easily had a different life. Easily. I can't imagine what it could be. I don't even imagine what life would have been like living in Nigeria, growing up there, where I would be, what I'd be doing, like, as a career. But being here in the UK, I do always tell myself that you definitely, like, your parents did what they had to do to give you this opportunity. Like, you should feel blessed and grateful to be here and make the most of it. Do you know what I mean? So not to say, like, my friends that were born here don't feel the same way, but it hits a bit different.
There is a
do you know what I mean?
Though.
It hits a bit different.
You'd be kind of naive to not acknowledge that.
Do you know what I mean?
Because in the back of your mind, you're always thinking, like, my parents have done a lot for me to be here.
Absolutely.
So I can't just do anything and not.
And
for example,
and not only that, she experienced it because she came with them. Where for me, even though our parents came from Africa, we were born here.
We didn't see their struggle.
Our perspective
we didn't see them trying to adopt and making sure that they could give us the best life possible. We didn't see them do the lower class jobs so that they can get to where they are now. We didn't see that.
I went through it with them growing up, even though fair enough I was younger, I don't remember a lot of the things, but even now, little things, I can still see it. Like, at my age now, a perfect example of that, a lot of you are probably aware, I don't know if I've ever spoken about it on the podcast, but my student finance situation was a big part of it. So when I'd finished sixth form, I realised I wasn't entitled to student finance. So that was like a crazy thing for me, because my whole life I just knew I was going to university. So for someone to then come around and tell me you can't go because of money, what? Like, what is that nonsense? Do you know what I mean? Whilst all my friends never had that issue, I had friends that told me, I'm not going to university. Of course, it's their choice. They can do what they want, but it's like, oh my God, I want to go to university. I don't get that choice, but you don't even want to go, and you can go. If you, do you know what I mean? You have that opportunity. So that would, if anything, to bring it back, that's what I would say. It's like, like that's a good example of it. Basically.
Yeah, 100%. But I do think what you talked about is very interesting about how in Nigeria, like, it wasn't like you felt like you couldn't do a certain job because you were black, because in Nigeria, like, you could just do what job ever you find to do, you just do it.
It was either more class,
exactly,
or education.
Yeah,
not only education in terms of you didn't have access to education, it was basically how smart you are.
Yeah.
So, and I also think in Nigeria, it's the education system. Well, it's a bit tough, but also helps. Like when I went to school, my first 2 years in school, I was taught with a cane. So if you got your times tables wrong, you got hit. So you learn what 8 times 8 is quick.
Yeah.
And also it meant that basically, if you look at quickly, if you look at British education system, it's based on industrialization, i.e. you take everyone at a certain age, you put them into a certain grade, and then you just move them along.
Right, regardless of what they've learned and achieved in that year. But in
how they smart
Africa,
they are,
it's different,
like So it gets to a point where, because of that, the smartest and the not so smart, let's say, or people who can't learn a certain way, they actually suffer. Whereas Nigeria is a bit like America, where it's like, if you don't pass,
you're not going anywhere.
You're staying where you are.
You're going to repeat the year as many times as you can until you pass and move on.
And if you're really, really smart, you get pushed along. So I'll say my mom, my auntie, they started university at 15, 16 years old.
Absolutely.
And by 21 years old, my mom, I always say, that's why my mom was, I always find it crazy, because 21, she finished her finished becoming a vet, PhD.
Wow.
By the time she was 25, 26, she was doing her master's in Edinburgh. And I'm like, how is this possible? But it's because for them, there's no cap. The system doesn't put a cap in it. It's more of, do you,
if you've got access
smart
as well.
Absolutely.
And I think that is like a massive difference in terms of, versus like, say, here in the West. But sorry to interrupt.
I think you're saying what you're saying. Yeah. I think even the mindset you get when you grow up in Nigeria is probably a bit better, only because you value education a bit more. Like what you were saying, you wanted to go to uni, and people are there saying, not that you have to go to uni, that's not even the message. It's more the value of what it is to learn something. Like you just appreciate it more,
but if you know you've had to work harder for it, that's literally it. It's I think it's with everything in life. If you think about it, you can literally relate that to every little thing in life, like money, for example. Do you know what I mean? Some people are just more naturally, I don't want to use the word blessed than others, but financial stability is a huge thing. Do you know what I mean? So for those that just get money, or maybe that are born into wealth, not to say they don't value money, but I'm pretty sure a person that works 9 to 5 or works every single day in this world will value money a bit more. Like
their perspective on it is different.
Not value it more, but it's different. Absolutely.
But even on that point, I remember when I was in, when did the riots happen in London? Was it 2011?
Yeah, 2012. Was it 12?
So
I remember.
Wow.
So I can remember when I was in Nigeria and I was doing an internship in a bank there. I remember it was on TV, and all the people were like, "Oh, look at your people! They're embarrassing us," because for them they were saying, going, this is the picture in which the world sees of black people, and if I come over there, I will not be associated with them. Whereas they were like, what are you writing over? And for them is and sometimes I think, and this is not for everyone, but at that point they were saying that because they were like, how do those people come to Nigeria? How do they come to Lagos and try and live our lives? And they'll see that what they're experiencing is like,
it's nothing.
In comparison. But at the same time, what that kind of does sometimes minimize the pain that we have here.
Right, that's what I was going to get onto. Absolutely.
There was a juxtaposition for that narrative when SARS happened last year, where you actually saw young Nigerians protesting, but what they were protesting for was their basic human rights. Where here, when the riots happened, it was for something. It had a pure motive initially, but then when what it turned into just became a mess. Where in SARS was literally from start to finish about we don't have this, and our government doesn't care about us.
And there was no looting. There was no but do you know what I'm saying?
So
it was just literally they just wanted their voices to be heard, and they've done it in the most respectful way they could. You know. But I don't know what you said about, you know, when you were in Nigeria and Nigerians saying like, oh, look at your people. So I feel like, I don't know. I don't think we should compare the struggle. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, because like you literally said, you got it right spot on when you said that, what did you
You
say?
can't
You
minimalise.
can't minimalise what
pain.
we're just because back home London is seen as this place where all your dreams can come true. Like you can do whatever you want here. Like that's how they glamorize it a lot, and I understand why because of how it looks on television. I'm sorry, you can't really know what it's like till you come here yourself.
100%.
Do you know what I mean? So living here, like I know that it's not being done intentional, but just to say, like we definitely have our own struggles. Like imagine, like not as if we are bottom of the barrel, but London, the UK is very diverse. We live in a westernised society, so that is a struggle in itself. Do you know what I mean? Like, but
I just think the reason they compare it is because where in Nigeria access is quite difficult when it comes to certain things here. Like to have a normal part-time job when you're 16 is casual here.
Absolutely.
In Nigeria, it's not the same.
Do you know
stuff
what
like
I
that. And
mean?
so the access they have to certain things, I can understand how they can see that we don't take. We take it for granted, but as you said, the effects are different, the circumstances are different, and how it impacts the person is different. So
absolutely,
we shouldn't compare.
Absolutely,
I've
never really thought about ever fighting for my like basic human rights here in the UK. That's mortifying to
But
even think
actually,
of.
touching on that, do you know? I think because, like, say if you take either, like, our parents or that generation. Do you think because of they've come to UK or America and they've had that struggle and they've seen what it's like there, that when like the BLM started coming through, they were looking at it going, what is this about?
Yes.
Like what you got, like people, why are you going to march?
Yeah.
Like just be careful, just shut up, do your thing. That's it. Like do you think things
That's
like that?
so
Do you know what? Can I say something?
no,
I feel like with Back when that whole situation happened with the Black Lives Matter protest last year in lockdown, it was funny because I had that conversation with my mum, and she saw both sides because it was like, oh yeah, why are you doing this? Like, like you don't need to do this. But at the same time, she was proud of our generation because she's made it clear that, not to say that her generation didn't do what we're doing, because they probably did. I'm sure they did, because Black Lives has always mattered, and I'm sure Black people have been tired. But we also need to remember that this specific Black Lives Matter example, they lived back home. Do you know what I mean? So they didn't really need to fight for like their race. And places like America, they had to. Of course, here in the UK, they did. If your parents were born here, maybe it's slightly different. They had to. Both my parents were born in Africa. They've never had to really, because everyone was the same. We're all black. If anything,
so what were they protesting for?
Do you know what I mean? If anything, it's fighting to end poverty or some. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So she saw it as a great opportunity, and she definitely was impressed by what she saw, like in terms of young people coming out, having our voices heard. And I've noticed that there is definitely a difference between our generation and theirs. They were more, I think they just conformed to whatever it is back then. They just took it and decided to run with it in comparison to our generation. And we can't deny the fact that social media has helped us as well. We've got lots of different things that has just transpired and helped the whole situation for us that they never had.
Exactly.
So we need to acknowledge that too.
And I feel like as well, our parents were more, I don't want to say they didn't do anything, but our parents were more a suffering silence type.
Yes.
And that's why I would say my parents got it. And I was really surprised actually, because usually stuff like that, they would be like, oh, I went to the protest. And if this happened maybe like say 10 years ago, they would be like, you are not going anywhere. Sit your ass down. But they got it because they see like the way we're standing up for ourselves and we're putting our foot down. Even basic stuff away from BLM, even just things like in relationships and just women leaving domesticated situations, stuff like that. Domestic violence. What they were taught, well, it is what it is. You stay, you please your husband. Whereas with us, it's like, oh hell no! Like, I've got my own money. I can do.
I'm gonna go if I have to go.
I've got the means and I've got the tools to live by myself and to do what I need to do.
And I feel like they know that's the right thing to do. Like even if they didn't know back then, now they do. Hence the reason why they understand it more. Like literally what Ashley said.
I even think it's interesting because I didn't go to the BLM one, but I went to the NSARS one. And I remember when I was telling my dad that's where I was going, and he was just like, okay. Because even though that was more close to home for him, their generation, when it comes to Nigeria, I think even as much as they want it to be better, they don't even see how that is possible. They don't see it. They don't.
It's almost like they've given up.
It's almost like a lost hope.
Do you know what? If something's been a certain way for a long time,
I don't blame them either, because when they were growing up, Nigeria is nothing like what it is now. Like Nigeria was a different place, and so it's crazy. And also what we see because of social media, they don't see. So their generation as well, they're like, what are you talking about? They didn't do that, or that didn't happen, or this. And like, say for instance, the tollgate, when they tried to lie about what happened at the tollgate massacre, like the government itself tweeted that they basically lied about what happened, and their generation will believe that versus what we actually saw live on Instagram Live, what was actually going on.
They didn't have
Do you know what I'm
Instagram,
saying?
the exposure wasn't there.
And so for them, it's like, I don't know. I think this what you said, social media is so key, because even at SARS, like how it happened the way it did last year, I don't even think it would have happened to the magnitude that it did without social media.
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely.
So,
absolutely.
And like, people have been fighting for their rights in Nigeria for a long time. Like,
Absolutely.
if you know, you know. But it was different because the world was almost in
watching,
solidarity with us.
And what you said about giving up, in terms of our parents giving up on the country and just not seeing anything getting any better, a perfect example of that is like every time it comes to Independence Day.
Yep.
The comments my parents make is so disheartening.
Yeah.
Even Nigerians in Nigeria are our age.
My mum, my like, as a Nigerian, personally, as a Nigerian, or wherever you're from, I think it's vital to remember your important Independence Day, right?
For sure, I agree.
So, every 1st of October, you just would never know, like, my parents have a clue what day it is. They do, but they would never say anything. So then I bring it up. I'm like, oh, happy Independence Day. What's there to be happy about?
Do you know what's so? Do you know
what's there to be happy about? Like, what we celebrate? What's there to show for it? And do you know what's so sad? They were proven right, because that whole SARS thing happened in the same month.
Yeah.
It was so I was so upset.
Because for the longest time, like we over here, we're hailing Nigeria, we're doing the most, and
Over
then our counterparts, our age group over there are never not. And then it was like it dawned on me last year, and it's been dawning on me over time, but it's dawned on me even more so now that I understand why. Because the thing is, they see it as we take the highlights of our culture and we celebrate it.
Which I understand.
And it's true. We kind of do. And a lot of the time, until it was like an SARS, a lot of people aren't even clued up about what's going on in Nigeria, and they're not in solidarity with what's happening in Nigeria. They couldn't care less.
Do you think, as in, like, the Nigerians of our generation actually know the history of Nigeria?
No.
Because there's a really, I think it was Netflix, I think there's a really good documentary which talks about it, and it's something which so in my previous job I focused on like investing in Africa and specifically Nigeria, and what became very clear to me is I actually understand to a certain extent why sometimes our parents get disillusioned with not only Nigeria but certain countries all over Africa, but it's because when you get there, the system is built in a certain way that everyone doesn't really trust each other, and is that we look at, say, Nigeria as, oh wow, you're all Nigerian or you're all black, whereas they're like, this guy's Igbo, this guy's Hausa, I don't trust you.
The divide is definitely,
and it gets to the point where the tribalism is so rife there, but it's not about black or white and outside, it's about your tribe or your class and things like that.
Perfect example of that. If you look at when it comes to politics in Nigeria, when it comes to who's to be the next president, it's not about being a good president. It's about the person that has to be in power has to be from my tribe. That's why you get presidents being assassinated. That's why they're killing them. That's why they're not, winning the elections. Like, that's why the elections are being, tampered with. So, and I got to learn that from my dad, because adults, listen, when you have, I don't know if Congolese people do this, not because we're not just talking about Nigeria, but when adults sit down and discuss politics, you listen. The older you get, you listen in, you get some insight, some knowledge from it, and some golden nuggets. That's one of the things that I've definitely picked up. Like, it's that whole not jealousy, but you just don't want to see each other win. Like, you don't trust each other. The person you want to see in power has to be from your tribe, from your tradition.
For you to feel like you're safe or whatever.
If a Igbo man is in power, a Yoruba man will not be happy. Like, do you know? But it shouldn't be the case.
And do you know what's interesting about the history question that you asked? Like, do people know their history? It's crazy, because for me, I didn't know Nigeria wasn't a country. Like, I didn't know Nigeria was a formed country before, like, maybe last year or the year before. Like, I didn't know. I didn't know that it was tribes all separated, and then when colonization and stuff happened, they put Nigeria together. Like, I didn't know that. Or like when the stuff was happening in Congo, hashtag Congo is bleeding, I think, last year as well. Ashley was telling me about, like, the reign of a guy that was reigning there, or like what having in
over.
Belgium or what the stuff that was like. I didn't have a clue.
This sounds so
And it sounds so
crazy,
bad. I think it's
but
horrible that we don't have a clue,
In
but-
university, I'd only found out what the Biafra War was.
Exactly,
I had no
stuff like
idea.
that. Like we don't have. I
I didn't know that existed. I literally saw a book in the library and I saw that. I called my dad. So what's the Biafra War? I said, wow, that's big. And I am the, when it comes to being Nigerian, I scream it from the top of my lungs. You know, so at that moment I had to put myself back a bit and think, yeah, you have a lot to learn.
Yeah.
Have I
We
learned
all
since
do,
then?
to
A
be
little
honest.
bit,
Yeah.
but there's still more.
There's
to
so
learn.
much
There's a lot to learn.
I mean, it's not even like, even from out even doing that job, I learned so much about like Africa as a whole, but I learned about the ways that things we've accepted, which actually when you take a step back, you're like, why do we do that? So we refer to Africa very nonchalantly as just Africa, and it's like one place. But you're like, hold on a minute. Africa is 54 different countries,
Right.
and then 3,000 different tribes, different languages. I guess the point where it's like, but we paint this one brush, and that's what we did in the West. And what really irritated me about that is that I would go to like an investor and say, okay, we want to have a project in say Cote d'Ivoire or even Ghana, because to me, like, I don't want to admit it, but Ghana they've got their stuff sorted out in
absolutely.
terms of finance, tourism, things like that. But people were like, we don't want to invest in Ghana. I'll be like, we're like, okay, why? Oh, because of like all the unrest just happening in Ethiopia.
What?
And I'm like, what? But it's because for them they
see
paint
Africa as one
So
thing.
for when images or things are shown to the West, it's like they've put it together. And then another one was the map, and I think I've shown it to like my family and my cousins. But if you look, and I implore you all to go online, just type in the real map of the world. What you'll see is that the map of the world is very Western centric. So the size of Africa has been shrunk. So if you actually look at the real size of Africa, it can fit China, India, Europe, America, all these different things into it. And the reason they've shrunk it is because when you go, oh, this is happening in Africa, or they're taking,
To minimize.
or yeah, exactly,
So it
taking
doesn't
the
look as
resources.
bad.
But when you see the size of Africa, you're like, wow, these people really come here and taking all our resources.
Crazy.
And sometimes after finishing that, I realized is that sometimes we play into it by saying, oh yeah, you know, we're all black or we're like all African, and it's great, but it's like, do we celebrate, like sometimes we need to like, can I celebrate the different countries? And I even think that sometimes if we be Nigerian, we actually benefit from it, because a lot of what is shown to be African
Is Nigerian.
Nigerian culture,
Nigeria,
Ghanaian culture, and I'll say South African.
Yeah.
No one talks about, I don't know, Lesotho, Namibia, Chad. So all these places, and it's like, so it gets to the point where it's, and I'm not excusing them, but it's like other races, other people who look at us and they go, but like basically, if I know one black person, I know all of you.
Like I have a black friend.
Yeah, I have a black friend, or it's like, oh well, you know.
Oh, you're from Africa. Do you eat jollof rice?
Yeah, exactly.
That's a great
No,
one.
literally.
No, I literally
That's
had
such a
someone.
good
I literally had a
one.
manager at my old job. He say, "Oh, like I eat jollof rice. Like my dad makes. He loves it." I'm like, okay.
She's Congolese.
I'm Congolese.
Exactly.
I don't know what to tell you.
What does that have to do
No,
with
but
it?
But then they call it stupid that way. If you go into someone goes, oh, where are you from? I'm from London. It's like, oh mate, you guys make really, really good spaghetti bolognese.
What?
And you're like, what?
And that never, it's crazy because that never happens.
Yeah.
Because
They
I would
identify
literally
as
be like,
British.
I didn't say I was Italian. I'm from London.
but then that's this point where it's and so anyway, the reason I say this and going off topic is just because these are things
such a good
which
point.
I've only realized, especially just from working to do with Africa, and I think that sometimes is what hinders us, but also is that, and same time you can't blame them, but all the money which kind of is made in all these countries, the rich take it out there, and where they go on holiday, they go on holiday to America, go on holiday here, they buy houses here. So the money which is made in these countries is taken out and is left. And in same ways that they like the systems there in terms of tax. We haven't got good taxes. Nigeria, I don't know if everyone pays tax. But if you think about it, is that
Forget about
if
it.
a country makes $1 billion more every month, and in UK the tax is 20%, then hopefully my math is good. Everyone will, like the UK will get 200 million. In Nigeria is 0.2%. So people will be taking home like 20 million, And then out of that 20 million, all the governors will be taking their own 10 million. So by the time it gets done, you only have 5 million to spend on all these different resources.
And there you have Lagos roads.
And you have 5 million to spend on a country which has got nearly 250 million people.
Literally.
Wow.
So it's this type of like, and even myself, I always have to ask myself, when I go on holiday from here in the UK, where do I want to go? I always want to go Asia, America. I'm like, have I ever said, oh, let me go see? Okay, maybe not. Sorry, but not something about Congo, but like Rwanda or Uganda or all these different places. And
That's so true.
it's interesting to me. Well, what's been interesting to me is that a lot of the people who I know who visit these places are Caucasian people.
Ugh.
Yeah.
And so sometimes I'm like, yeah, what are we doing? Like, it gets point is like, we can say stuff, but are we talking? Are we
Do we actually care?
Are we getting what we buy? And that to me sometimes, for me, it's just interesting when I listen to people here in UK or America, and they talk, oh, we're for Africa or we're for Black people. But I'm like, okay, but what are you actually doing bar saying stuff and tweeting?
It's so true. Even on the topic of what you're saying, the whole notion of being pro-Black is such a westernized idea, because when you talk about stuff like that on Twitter and then you see Nigerian Twitter engage with it, they're just looking at us like, you lot are crazy. Like, the things that, like, because do you know what it is? We have created systems in the West as Black people, not necessarily me, but Black people, like as a whatever collective they want to call themselves. We've created systems to make ourselves feel better about ourselves. Like, I don't know how to explain it, but
I
like,
think we've done it just to
Survival?
stand out.
yeah, of course, survival.
You know, we need
but
to survive.
so a lot of them lack actual like
Substance.
is what I'm essentially
But
saying.
you also got to remember that, and again, comes back to the whole, if you're second or third generation born here or you've immigrated, and this is something which I actually noticed. I kind of noticed when I dated a girl she was Black, but she was from West Indies, and she went, the difference is you guys know your history, you guys know where you came from. A lot of African Americans or something, we had to create our own culture.
Right.
So our own culture is steeped in either in the way what we talk, the way we eat, and different things like that. You guys can trace it back and have way more. So it gets to the point where certain cultures might seem to be not as substantive as like, oh, this is English culture, we can trace back to Henry, whatever. Is that some cultures have been stripped of that. So it gets to the point where what they're left with is something which, as you said, might not be substantive.
I don't even mean that though, because that's a very good point. I don't mean African American culture or like cultures that have literally had to find their history and stuff. I mean, like, say for instance, here in the UK, most Black people here in the UK, if you ask them where they're from, they can tell you where they're from. But I think we're becoming more and more American in the way that we are trying to almost reduce ourselves to this one Black culture, is what I'm saying. And we're doing stuff very performatively where we actually do know our culture, and we should be more embracing of that.
Absolutely.
And I think,
But I do think at the same time, I feel like we've advanced so much. Like, we have grown from that a little bit, I think. The reason why I say that is because maybe 10 years ago, if you were to ask, like the example you gave about when wanting to go on holiday, you know, you'd get more people wanting to go to Spain and, you know, America and all these places. But I feel like now, the older we're getting, people do want to go back home.
But you know why we want to go back? We want to go back for the good times. We want to go back to show people that there's parts of Nigeria that are like London.
A lot of people are starting to build houses back home.
No, but I'm
now.
saying a lot of people like in our generation that you're talking, which you're right, people are going back home, but they're not going back home to actually go to maybe with their original, where they come from, their village or whatever. They're coming to show people in London that Nigeria has a cinema, Nigeria has a beach, Nigeria has this, Nigeria has that.
But it's Lagos.
Yeah,
Lagos.
But guys, we also need to. You're right, but we also need to acknowledge it can't happen overnight.
Oh, yeah.
Of course not.
I feel like it's definitely a lot better than it was before.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna lie.
Oh, yeah,
it has to start somewhere. It can start with, you know, not being serious and just going back home to just, you know, have a great time. And what was it called? Like 2019 was the year of the diaspora. What was it? Return. You know, it starts like from things like that.
Right.
A lot of people, like people our age, are fortunate enough to have enough money to go back home and invest. Some people are doing it. I know. I have friends that are going home to build houses, like helping children
and
in schools, you know. So not to say like I can't recall that happening a few years back,
Right.
you know, because even being African was something that, like, do you get it?
Yeah.
So we've
It
come
wasn't a thought
along.
in
It
people's
wasn't.
heads.
Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean? So
yeah.
we have come a long way. Like I said, it's not going to happen overnight. We're the generation to make that change. Do you know what? People always say, oh yeah, like your generation is there's a lot of pressure on us, you know, guys, because we're going to be parents soon, hopefully. Do you know what I mean? And that's what we've got to teach our children. Our parents didn't teach us that, hence the reason why we're not doing it. If we start installing it in our heads, when we have kids, start installing it in their heads, when you grow older, got to go back home. You have to do this back home, and not just saying it. They see us doing it.
Exactly.
Why wouldn't they want to do it? It's their country too.
Because you can say all you like all day long. Like, I know a lot of Nigerians that are very proud to be Nigerian, but they have never been back to Nigeria.
That's what
and
I was
it's not even
gonna
a
say.
show. And it's not about show as well. Because at the end of the
No.
day, whatever. But the reason I believed my dad and the reason I believed my parents when they said they were proud to be Nigerian is because my dad literally goes back to Nigeria every single year.
Yeah,
And like it's like the culture was in the house where you can be saying it, but like people don't actually believe you.
This is,
because
and this is
nothing's
what
happened.
this is what I mean as well. Like, it can start from the littlest things.
It's stuff like that,
Do you know
yeah.
what I mean? Like, you know, I don't know anybody that does this, but I'm pretty sure there are families out there, their parents haven't taught them anything about their history or just even speaking their languages for whatever reason. But it starts from things like that. Us learning our languages.
Yeah.
Then when we
Learn
have
out
kids,
of your
we
way.
teach them their language, not rely on, oh, your grandma will teach you.
Yeah.
You know, things like that. And then every now and again, when you have your family, we go back home.
Yeah.
Not just go on holiday to America
Yes.
and
Spain
Spain.
or
wherever
We'll
you
take the family
places,
back to
yeah.
Africa. You know what I mean?
But I think also what, in fairness, sometimes to our parents, was that sometimes they didn't take us back home because for them, they spent a lot of time working.
Right.
And so they were like, okay, every single free time I need to make money, so you guys don't have to struggle the
of
same way.
course.
Right.
And then for them, when they went on holiday, why do I want to go back to one country for holiday when I want to go somewhere else? And that could be one part. And the other part comes back to, and trying to come back full circle, was that the reason I say all that, I was saying this was because, as you said, we're the generation to make that change. But if you're our parents and you were born to it and it's taken 50, 60 years, you're going to be like, what do you mean proud of?
Like, yeah, I'm here now, so what am I looking for back there?
Exactly. And you get to the point where it's like, and then they'll see like end SARS happening, and they'll be like, we're happy for you, but the same government which is oppressing you, it was the same government which was oppressing us.
Right.
That's why we have to leave.
Changed, yeah.
So for them, it's like, and this is not only in Nigeria, it could happen in other countries, and I guess even sometimes it even happens, like, say, in the West. Like, I always think about what Dave Chappelle said once about, like, racism, and he said, black people haven't, tongue-in-cheek, black people haven't advanced, white people have just got nicer. So if white people at one point just change their mind, it's game over.
You
and I was
think?
just like, and for me, I was just
agree.
like,
I don't agree with
I
that.
don't
was
know.
like, and the reason he said that, mostly in America, I was like, okay, whatever. But then I just saw what's happened for the last 2 years in America, and I went, you know what? That's kind of true, because look what happened to Trump. Look what happened after that. If white Caucasian people there change their minds, it's like, it's game over. And I was just like,
I don't know if I
don't know
agree.
if I
I'll be
agree with that
honest.
either.
I'm
I
going to be
can't lie, I
very
agree
honest.
with it. The reason why I agree with it is because what we've experienced, what we're seeing is nothing new.
Yeah.
It's nothing like, oh my days, like BLM, wow. Maybe the way we've reacted to it is different, but
Right.
it actually happening is nothing new.
Do you know
And
why?
in
Do you know why?
relation
Sorry, you
Go
carry on.
And then in relation to what you
Yeah.
said, how if white people got nicer, everything would change. I agree with that. It's simply because of the fact that, think about it, the reason why racism exists is because of white people's attitudes and behaviour towards black people,
Right.
slavery, etc.
And
So
other races.
So then if now white people there was a change of conditionment in their minds, it would be completely different. There would be a change. There would be a switch.
But the reason I disagree is because I disagree with the initial part first, because I think what the difference is and what they've tried to do for the longest time is shut our access to information. And now we have so much more knowledge on what actually took place. And so if things were to change up now, I think we are more equipped to do better. But and then apart from that, the second part, like what you said about what did you say at the end? Them being nicer. There's always been problems with people. It's not that's why when it comes to about racism, racism is a problem, but the actual problem is human beings and the condition of human beings and their flawed their flawed
Ways of
nature.
thinking.
So before there was racism and there was slavery, there was rivalry amongst tribes.
Right.
There was rivalry
Racism is
amongst
just a form
people.
of
It's just another form of it.
And,
So
yeah.
that's why I disagree with if white people got nicer. I just think it's human beings in general, because there's already division between the black people. There's division within African countries on their standalone. There's division everywhere. Do you get what
But
I
I
mean?
think I think when Dave Chappelle said nicer, it's not necessarily him saying, oh, the way I speak to you is going to be different. I think it's in terms of character. Like, racism is a heart problem. It's a system within their minds.
Right.
So when he said when white people get nicer, it's not automatically, oh, I'm going to wake up and the way I speak to you is going to be different.
deep down.
Yeah, deep down, a heart condition.
So you think that's the answer to more peace in the world?
Well, okay. I'll say more,
in the Western
more
world?
Peace, okay, I'll say more peace is it's. I'll say it's tough, and I always use where I grew up, because Northern Ireland, when I moved there, it was a civil war. Then we had the whole peace process. And I mean, Catholics and Protestants, and this is another thing which I think also kind of shapes my view in terms of when I look at race and things like that. I grew up in a society where the white people hated each other. So it got to the point where the whole black versus white, it was there, but it wasn't as prominent as, oh, you're white, but you're Catholic, so I'm going to kill you. So to get to the point whereas my conditioning growing up wasn't a black and white thing, it was like, it's a religion thing or it's a tribal thing. So it got to the point whereas from that, I was able to, okay, that's the difference. Then when you had a peace process, how did peace, quote unquote, come to Northern Ireland? Was because they had to sit down and firstly acknowledge the hurt they cause each other, acknowledge how much they hate each other, and most importantly that they wanted a future for their kids. And then after that, they had to systematically go about changing different things. But it's like, I would say they got nicer, but the reason they got nicer was because of the future for their kids.
Right.
And because of that, you had certain things which had to be put in place. Like I always use the police. So the police in Northern Ireland, and I don't know if that's the same that could happen here or America, but the police in Northern Ireland is originally called the Royal Ulster Constabulary. And because 49% of the people there were Irish, they were like, why do I want someone called Royal? Because I don't believe in the Queen. Right. So it got to the point where they're like, okay, well, let's change the police name to Police Service Northern Ireland. Then after that, they looked at the constitution of the police itself and was like 70% are Protestant. So we have 70% people from one tribe. Obviously, they're going to pick any other tribe. So they went, right, we need to now reconstitute the police. So they spent, I think, 5-6 years only hiring Catholic people to make sure it was more level.
Balanced, yeah.
And it was that thinking. But that happened because of, I won't say nicer, but because people just realized, okay, we want a hope for the future.
Right.
Changing character.
And I think that is what, to a certain extent, people kind of got disillusioned with Trump. Because for a long time you saw, think about it, you went from Barack Obama there, where you saw everyone's like, okay, you know what, America's getting better, we've got a black president, white people thought white people voted Barack Obama. And then you have Trump, who stood on the most bigoted things, come in, and people were like, these people, were they really nicer? Did the character really change? Or did this go, yeah, we're sick of being nice, we want to get our own way. And I think that is what kind of Dave Chappelle is trying to angle at, is that change can happen, but it has to be, for it to be long, it has to be based on the people who are oppressing, changing, as you said, the character and being nice. Because as much as power as you think you have, if someone gives you £100, you're like, yeah, I can buy all this. If the person just shuts up the shop, you can't go buy anything. You can't buy, that £100 becomes worthless. Right. So
there's no value to that anymore.
So it gets to the point where it's like, I would say we need to come together and fight for things. But I've always said that before, to a certain extent, and this can be totally wrong, some people I'm sure disagree, before you can go to someone who goes, I want this change, you need to fix your own house. And I think sometimes that is what isn't good, is that people see so much division within their own community that they get to a point where it's like, you guys want all this power, but it's like, if we give you this power, what's going to happen? And then what do they quote unquote use as example? Well, look at Nigeria. We give you guys power. Look what's happening there. And then we can't say anything about it. And so I guess the
Yes,
point.
we can.
No, we can. No, but what I'm saying.
We can say a lot about it.
What can we say about it?
We can say a lot because for that definition of black on black crime, and let's use that for example.
Yeah.
It's not a real thing.
But I'm saying, but it's not. But
Do you know what I mean? Like we've literally just said, like, it's a human being thing. Like we as human beings, we will always find division regardless of where we are.
Yeah.
So why is it as black people, why are we captured in this situation, and why are we told that we have to behave within ourselves?
certain way.
It's never gonna. I'm sorry, it's never gonna happen. I don't think it's ever gonna happen because it doesn't have to happen.
In other cultures,
It
in
doesn't
other
have to
races,
happen. I'm sorry.
they have division within
There's
themselves.
division everywhere.
So I think
why should we have to be the one to be unified? And
I think what we'll say
kumbaya
is-
for you to stop discriminating against us and give us equal opportunity as yourself.
Because that's again, it comes back down to what I say. Like, someone is like, why is someone powerful? Isn't powerful because they're in a position. It's because everyone beneath them has ascribed to system which gives them power.
Right.
So it gets to a point where like
fans and celebrities.
Yeah.
They've
But
all
the thing
put
about it
them
is, like,
there.
They have the platform that they have.
Yeah,
because of the
Yeah.
people.
like think
because
about
of
it,
us,
coup,
yeah.
everyone just goes like, we don't want Putin in power. So I get to the thing is that you either do two things. You either, as what people are trying to do a lot, is either you go, this person has no power, and either we just don't believe in your power, or you start your own thing.
Right.
But to start your own thing, you kind of nearly have to be united.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's why I guess that's why you have support black
That
businesses.
part
support
I
things.
understand
Yeah.
in terms of building our own thing. Fair
Yeah.
enough.
Yeah.
You know, we can't do it in the next few years. It can happen.
Yeah.
But in terms of getting power from the people that already have the power, because we, you know, and the reason the only way we can do that is to be nice to each other. I don't know.
No, it's
about
not to be. I don't think you have to be nice. You have to be respectful.
Right.
And I think it's because if you, and in the same way as like I was like same thing happened say within like I'll take the Catholic versus Protestants. People within the Catholic and Protestants, some of them didn't like each other. Like even when they had peace protests, they like some people were like
normal,
and that's normal.
Very, very
but
normal.
what they were able to say is like, we want to further our cause. I might not like you and the way you
But
do
we
it,
just have to
but
come
we
together
have
like
to
blood
come
and
together.
crips. Yeah,
And that's
come on.
and that's what happened in terms of like say if you look at Sinn Féin and SDLP, these are two different parties. One was literally the political party of the IRA, and the other one was built upon how can I put it, principles which he took from the civil rights. So the guy actually went to America and watched what was happening in America. It was like,
Right.
well, these black people have come together and they're marching. So we want to do the exact same thing in Ireland for us, but they come together. And I think that is something which I always think if you want to get power or you want to change stuff, you either, as I say, you create something from yourselves, or you go, I'm going to take power away from you. And how am I going to take power? Because I'm going to stop not listening to you. I'm going to a point where you actually have no power, but to do that, you need everyone to kind of come together.
Yeah,
come together.
And that is where sometimes is.
Do you feel like we can accomplish that one day?
I think we can, but it gets to a point where everyone has to realize I need to either sacrifice something, or it gets to a point where it's like, what am I for? Like I used to like Nipsey Hussle used to say, why are we buying a Gucci? We can create our own Gucci. But why are we buying Gucci? It's because there's certain
They've
things,
ascribed
there's
something
certain-
to it.
The Jewish has created their own Gucci.
Yeah. So this gets to a point where people, for example, Rihanna. For so long she went, I'm going to create, like for so long all these people didn't listen to this. As soon as Rihanna created Fenty, all these other brands were like, oh, we don't do this, we do this for your skin tone, blah, blah. I'm just sitting there going, oh, now you care
Because
about us.
we did ask you to do it.
And it's possible.
And it got to the point where it's like what happened there? The power was taken away from there because as a unit, we all went to Fenty.
Fenty, yeah.
And now what happens is that Rihanna's she's now a billionaire. Where's she going to take her billions? Invested in other people who live like her.
Yeah.
And
I hope so anyway.
well,
We can hope so.
We can only hope.
so anyway, but it's things like that, and I think that for me is, I'm gonna be honest, I got disillusioned to a certain extent when I was working certain things in Africa, and it's not all places, but because so many people would want to make money, but they only want to make money by going to business with a Caucasian person because of what is showed. Oh,
it looks
I got
better.
a business partner in America, and I'm like, huh? And there's certain things like that, which is like another perfect example. NEPA. Why don't we have electricity in Nigeria?
Why don't we have electricity?
But one of the reasons
Yeah.
is because most people have generators. If you need a generator, you need something. It's like you need continuous diesel. So if you have continuous diesel, people keep making money off it.
Yeah.
So what happens is that they basically, people who used to import the generators start paying off people in the government and saying, yo, don't fix the electricity because
It's
you get
making
this,
more
we'll
money.
pay you off. So the guys in the government were like, okay, let's do that. Rather than investing the money into the system.
That's one of the biggest issues in that country, and I don't see anything. I don't know.
But
yeah.
But what can help us, and this is again is where I think we have to be smart, because we are some of the smartest people on this earth. Like, don't get it twisted. Don't let them tell you whatever. Like, one of the guys who helped fund the internet was a Nigerian guy. The guy who owns Gatwick Airport is a Nigerian guy. Oh no, London City. There's lots of people but we don't get taught this obviously in schools.
No.
So we don't understand this by ourselves.
No.
But if we're able to harness that power and come together, where it's like, say the African Union and things like that, then the
sky's the limit.
Sky's the limit. But we also have to realize that people are always still trying to use us, and we shouldn't be like this perfect example is like the African Union building was built by the Chinese. It was came out like 2-3 months ago. They found out every night at 2 p.m. all the stuff was getting downloaded in the building, and they found out that the Chinese were downloading all the information from African Union and sending it to China.
Of course.
And people was like, and unfortunately, it's just a situation where we wanted to build something, we couldn't afford it, but it's like
It's not the first time they've stolen from us.
Just because we need to round up, to relate it even to something that we can relate to as well in the UK, that's something we should also support, is like stuff like GRM and stuff like that, where Grime Daily or Link Up TV, they are black entertainment media, where they're almost taking the place of like record labels like Sony and whatever, and putting but they're black owned, and they're bridging the gap between what it used to look like for people wanting to do entertainment and what it looks like now, and putting ourselves, and everything is to benefit the community.
Right.
So I think we should do our best as we can, and there's been so many gems dropped in this episode.
Wow.
Honestly, thank you for coming on, because we really appreciate it. If you want him back, let me know.
Comment down below.
It's been a change of
I was going to say
pace.
it's different.
Yeah, for sure.
It's different from
I think people watching are going to be like, wow, didn't expect it.
Yeah.
I mean, we didn't expect it.
We're not all jokey, laughy.
Yeah.
But it's good. These are things that he always tells me, by the way, that we need to start talking about more, because it diversifies like the topic, and it also enriches like the mind and
we have the
we have a
audience
responsibility to do it as well.
Yeah,
100%.
And one last thing would be for people who are creating their own businesses and are for the black community, don't cut corners. And what I mean by that is that if we're going to create our own economy, if we're going to create something for ourselves, we have to have it as good or not better than other alternatives, because
that's true.
Otherwise, what's the point?
We don't do for second best. We all like, I don't know, it's like Eurobuzz or whatever. We want the best. So there's a point where we're coming to you and giving our money. We want the best. Don't take our money just because helping me out.
Black business.
Doing me a favor.
Because for me, I always baffled when I walk down Croydon High Street and all the hair shops, all the things are all not owned by black people.
It's crazy.
And then I'm like, yo, okay. And I've been in circumstances where I've went to someone who's, let's say, a black owner of an establishment or whatever, and the service was so. Then I was actually went, I'm not coming back to you, but I want to go find someone else. But it gets to the point where where's the other person? Because everyone's now focused all the investments and community into this, and I'm like, let's do better, because
I
mean, we didn't even get touched. I think we didn't touch like 1/10 what we want to speak about.
Really?
Oh wow!
Oh mate, yeah. But what I think I've taken away from here is that obviously be proud to be where you're from.
Right.
Be proud to be black, because it is a privilege, as Rihanna says.
Absolutely.
But what we need to do is we can't rely on other people to give us handouts. We need to band together
And create our stuff.
But also question. Like when I say question, talk to your parents, talk to your elders, talk to people within your society, because you will learn from their mistakes.
Right.
You will learn about why they think certain stuff, and then you can actually, like, if you can't convince people in your own house, how you can convince other people?
Facts.
So talk to people in that around there.
True.
Charity begins at home, and them things there.
Absolutely.
Also, on the black business thing, don't only market yourself to only black people, because I think that's a problem that a lot of our
That's what
black
Fenty
businesses
did.
do. No, they shouldn't only market to black people.
No. I'm saying she.
Oh yeah, she markets to everybody. Exactly.
She was like, we put black people.
Because that's another thing that I've noticed with a lot of
Everything,
black-owned
very
businesses.
inclusive.
Everything is always black. But it's like
Hashtag
the only
black.
reason other businesses have profited off of us is because they're not only marketing to us, they're marketing to everybody.
Yeah.
So you also your business, what you're saying is so true. Make sure you're not cutting corners and just market to everybody. And by God's grace, we're gonna get
Make
there.
everyone your audience.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So thank you guys for listening. Thank you for watching. You know what to do. Follow us on all our social media platforms. If you want him back, as I said, let us know in the comments. And we will see you soon. Thank you guys. Bye.